Okay, we're going to try to go out far enough that you can see the center part of this project is an inside-out corner-to-corner square. It starts in the center and works its way out in rounds, turning after each round. This is the one corner of it, and if you follow it, that's the other corner, and then the top corner, and over here is the other corner. Alright, what I wanted to do today was make a video to actually show how to make this project where you start with the square in the center and then you work off from these two sides and go up and over and back and forth, and you can make a shawl or a blanket. I chose not to finish off these edges and make it square on the ends. I thought I liked it with the point. But when I went and looked at the video that I had made for the square, I realized that it was, well, it was made before I had figured out how to use editing software. Let's put it that way. So that is the only project I have that actually shows the square. I mean, currently in my house. I donate everything, and that hasn't been donated yet. I still have to clip ends and so forth. But this is what started it all, was this corner-to-corner triangular shawl that I made have made several projects with this, and it starts the same way for the first two sections. Here at the top, back, in the center, just like it's going to be just like it would be for starting the square. And I also have another hat. This is a summer hat that is going to be donated, chemo hat. It's cotton and nice and soft, and it is, every bit of it is corner stitches except for the single crochet here at the bottom to edge it off and kind of bring it together. And it starts at the top, and the first setup rounds or sections the same as what I'm going to show you for the square. Good thing I know how to edit this out. Okay, we are going to start. This is any yarn, appropriate hook. If you want a looser weave, then you would use a bigger hook. I have a 5.5, and this is, I'm guessing it's probably Bernat Super Value. Yeah, I think that's what it is. And on the hat, I recommend that you make, because it's a hat and you don't want big gaps, that you make your squares, your blocks, for corner to corner by chaining up 5 to start a new row and chaining up 6 to start the next block up. But on this blanket, I am recommending that you do it with 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and then chain up 3 to start the next row, or next block up. So we are going to make 4 sections that are going to form the center of this square, and this is the first block of section 1. We're going to do the same thing we would for a normal corner project to make another row. And you can turn now if you want, but I found that when I'm trying to make the next block, it just flips over on me anyway. So I just leave it, and I have this way of reminding myself how it's supposed to be. So we are going to do our first block of row 2 of section 1. Okay, my rule that what it reminds me is I keep the block I just made, the one that the hook's in, facing up. The fronts of the stitches are up. And I'm going to have to go in a little bit for this, I think. Yeah, there. That should be good. Okay, and the other block, or if you're doing this project, the other section, you want to flip over so that you're going to be joining with the back of the stitches of the block below facing up. And we're going to join into the gap between the chain 3 and the first double crochet of that block. And chain up 3 and make our second block of row 2. And that is section 1 finished. Okay? And I'm going to leave this here like this because I undo this once I work into that. And so it's not bulky and it doesn't have an obvious knot in it. Okay, we need to do setup to get down here to start section 2 from the same point down here. So to do that, we slip stitch into the side of the double crochet we just made and into the gap between the 2 blocks. And then I like to do just 2 on this block so it's not too bulky and it's easy to find that center point. So I've done 1 in the bottom of block 1, and then I want to go right into the very center of that block. And I'm going to chain up 6 and make my first block of section 2. Okay, I'm going to keep that facing up. I need to flip this over, and the cue for me is you need to join into the side where you just slip stitch down. And if you feel them, this one is thicker. You're going to join right here in between this block here and this one with a slip stitch, chain 3, and join with the slip stitch to the top, and I like to get 2 loops of that double crochet. Whoops, there we go. And now we're going to chain 3 again and make our next block. And then we join to this one, chain 3, and make our second block of row 2 of section 2. Okay, and this is what we do to set up for the shawl. That's all you do, and then you just start doing rows back and forth, and it works really well with a cover changing, and that has long cover changes. So, but we are making a square, so we are going to set up for section 3 the same way we did for 2. Slip stitch into the side of that double crochet into the gap between the 2, and on this we're going to do 3 total slip stitches 2 into the bottom of block 1 there, and then 1 that goes right into the center. And that's another reason to leave this with that like that, so it's easy to see where you need. And this is what it looks like at this point. Section 1, Section 2, and Section 3. Now, setting up for Section 4 is the same, but then we need to stop at the end of that. Do our slip stitches down the side, and we do 3 again. 2, or 1, 2, and 3 into that center right there. If we tighten that center ahead of time, it's very hard to get into it, so we don't want to do that. Okay, now, it's very obvious that what we did before is not going to work. So what we need to do instead is we're going to do 3 chains and join here. This is what works. 1, 2, 3. Join, do 1, 2, 3, and you notice we did not turn when after we were done slip stitching. We didn't flip it over, we didn't turn it. We just did our slip stitches, joined, slip stitches. Now we turn and we do the first block of row or of section 4. And when we get that done, now we will join to section 3. There's our slip stitches there. So we're going to join, do our chain 3, come up here, chain 3, now turn, and we'll do our second row of the 4th section. Okay, now normally we would just join there, but I found that that kind of leaves a gap that is not as obvious on the other, what we'll call these petals. Looks kind of like a 4-leaf clover, so we got 4 petals. So what I found works is to make a double crochet into that slip stitch right there, and you need to go under 2 of the loops of the slip stitch right there. So 2 loops and make your double crochet and then join. Now what I have started doing more recently is before I join, I like to leave that off, move the yarn to the back, and then you can either join into the gap, and I do a slip stitch into that top of that one like that, or you can join into the top of the chain, whichever. It does not seem to matter, but that fills the gap nicely. Excuse me, and makes it so that it looks like the other ones. So what we need to do is do a reality check before you go on and make sure that you have the same configuration for your setup rounds is this. You need the 4 petals, and each petal has one side that has the stitches going up and one side with the stitches going off to the side, and all of the petals are the same. If you're left-handed, they'll be just the opposite. You'll have this side going up and this side going off to the right. So if you have that, you're good to go. The other thing I need to point out is when you do this project with chaining 6 and chaining up 3, you're going to have bigger gaps. If you're working on a baby blanket and you want for some, or any project, and you don't want the bigger gaps, then definitely it works very well to do this with chaining up 5, even on the setup rounds. Chain up 5 to start a new row or a new thing, and 2 to make the next block up. That will work fine. The only modification that you would need is you need to do one final round at the end. If you're going to even it off, which I'll show in a later video, then you would need to do one with working the 6 and 6 and 3 for that outside round in order to make it easier to even things out. If you're not going to even it out, if you're going to leave it scalloped on the edges, then you're good to go either way. So that is the setup. Okay, that's all that you need to have to do the setup. I would add that before you go on, you might want to consider doing scraps of yarn, whatever, to just indicate the peaks. It's pretty obvious when your project is small that where the peaks are, but when you get going, if you're making a larger project, a larger square, and you have, 15 or 20 or more going up a side, now you only have 1, and when you have more, you can end up making mistake and treating the peak the wrong way. So you need to be reminded when you get to the peak, and it doesn't matter, you can use a scrap of yarn or a bobby pin, whatever, just something to go, hey, we're at a peak, we need to do something different. Okay, we will be back. This is rows 1 and 2, and we will be back for row 3, which is the repeat round for the rest of the project, as long as you want to stay with just one color.